Welcome once again to the Cincinnati Herald's weekly high school basketball report. I'm Victor Hunter. This is Coach Lannis Timmons. We have a special guest all the way from California today, Mr. Corie Blount, UC great, Final Four. You know him, the legend, 11 years in the NBA. Grace us with his time. We're going to talk a little basketball with us today. We're going to get started right away, but before we do, we want to give you encouragement from the Word of God, as we will do on our weekly show. Just want to have you look at the book of Philippians, 4th chapter, 13th verse. It says, I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. We just want you to lock in on that and be encouraged. Trust the process. You know that God is working for you, that He's with you, and then everything is going to pan out okay. We got a lot of testimony here with our own lives and how things have worked out, and it's just a matter of trusting the process, trusting God, all the prayers that family and grandparents and parents are putting in. So with that, we're going to get into our show today. We're going to talk a little bit about two young ladies. And we're talking all of this basketball. Mr. Coach Walter White couldn't be with us today, but we were going to do a little bit toward girls basketball and just mentioning a couple of players. The 2014 Princeton Viking state championship team. There are two young ladies. Carly Pogue is a senior forward center, 6'2". She fell in the lab, just a great situation for her at the University of New Hampshire. Just wanted to kind of shout out to her. She's ending her career this year, but she has 1,300 points right now in her career, which is just exceptional. She'll probably have a chance to play overseas or maybe in the WNBA. She could have gone to a much bigger school, but she's had a blessed career. I know her dad personally, and the young lady's very happy where she landed. So we want to shout out to her. What we're doing here is trying to get a lot of these kids to that level. The second kid we want to mention might be close to an insurmountable type of thing. Kelsey Mitchell, senior guard at The Ohio State University. She is presently 8th on the all-time scoring list. She is 45 points behind Rachel Banham of the University of Minnesota. So probably within a week or two, well not 2 weeks, probably within 2 games, she will surpass Rachel Banham as the all-time leading scorer in the Big Ten, both men and women. So we just want to shout out to both of those young ladies and their families. I'm sure if we talk to them, those same words of encouragement have been mentioned to them, and they've stayed the course and look at the result. So that's how we want to start our show today. We're going to bounce it to Coach Timmons right away to talk about some of the things he's seen this week in high school basketball.
Good afternoon, everyone. Just want to talk a little bit about Walnut Hills. They have a senior kid by the name of Cameron Gibson. Cameron is about 6'3", weighs about 180, 85 at the most. But I got a chance to see him for the first time, and he's, to me, is the best guard in the city that I've seen. I've been blessed to see a number of games this year. He takes it off the dribble, going left, going right. He catches and shoots the basketball, and I'm talking about threes too off the dribble. And also he'll get to the basket going left and right. And I talked to Coach Ricardo Hill about him. And I just wanted to get some insight, get to know the kid a little bit better. And I asked him, what about his character? And he said, Coach, he's top shelf. He said, this kid, you could see him in the lunchroom. Somebody might leave a tray out, and he'd take the tray up there to the lunchroom counter where it belongs or whatever. See some trash on the floor, pick that up, throw it in the garbage can, and just do these things. It just comes natural. That's what Coach was telling me. So I just really wanted to take my hat off to that kid too. Also, he has a 2.5 GPA, but he had a 25 on the ACT. And so we talked about the recruitable athlete of the week.
Yes.
So this is why I think that this kid fall right up under that particular one. So, but I was really impressed in the game. How many times have you seen in Cincinnati where a team have a 6'11" kid and the other team have a 7'1"? I know in all my years I've never seen it, but that's what we had when we seen Withrow and Walnut Hills. And it's so hard to pronounce these guys' names, but I'm gonna just say the kid from Withrow, 6'11". This kid, he started off, matter of fact, he scored their first 6 points. And Withrow only scored 23 points for a total. That was what they had for the game. And with those guys in there, both of them, they kept changing shots. Even though, they didn't have, both of them probably had maybe 1 or 2 blocks at the most. But changing shots, they were really, really effective in that area. But Cameron Gibson, again, that's one of the best, guards that I've seen this year.
No better time than now to acknowledge Cameron as our recruitable student athlete of the week. Let's get his name out here earlier in our program. Let's go support this kid, watch him play. He's got talent to play on the next level, a more competitive level moving forward. So we got some guys here that understand the game a little bit. Once we get our eyes on these kids, we can tell you something that you can pretty much take to the bank. Corie being here today, we got a former pro that we all have a pretty good relationship with that can tell us some things about Lakota East, and if he chooses to branch out and talk about other GMC basketball that he's seen.
Well, the one thing that Lakota East has to offer to me is the kid Jared Cox. I mean, he's one kid, he's maybe 6'3", 6'4", but he plays on both sides of the floor. I mean, you get maximum effort and energy out of this kid every game that I've watched so far. He's been their leading scorer, but he competes on a high level. He has a very, very high basketball IQ, and I've been watching Jared since the 6th grade, and he's just one of those players that gives it to you no matter what the circumstances is. We had Lakota East had 2 crucial games to me going into this week. We played Princeton, and then they also played Oak Hills. And if it wasn't for Jared Cox, there's no way that they would have pulled that game out. And the reason I'm saying we, because my son goes to Lakota East also, so I've been able to watch Lakota East play. And they're a little undersized, but what Jared Cox brings, just he's the variable that brings them to wins and losses. And so far, the games that they lost, it was more so because Jared wasn't on that high scoring capacity that he usually is on. But besides that, the games when he scored points, Lakota usually wins.
Coach, have you seen some other GMC players that stand out to you?
Well, the other GMC teams that also impressed me, I've been a fan of Mason since I've been watching GMC basketball. I just think their coach does a phenomenal job with the quality of players that he has. They really haven't been down until this year, I think, based on what I've seen. And they just have a whole system that they run on both ends, and they do a very good job of executing. I also like Oak Hills. I think I don't know the coach. Mike Price does a phenomenal job of orchestrating his team. They lost a tough one last night to Lakota East, but it was from a last-second shot by, of course, Jared Cox with no time left on the clock. So it was a very competitive game. And I thought I'm watching Mike Price and I'm watching Oak Hills, and they did a phenomenal job of execution during the whole course of that game. It was a home game for us. So it's always tough to win in somebody else's arena, and I thought Oak Hills looked pretty good.
And you know what, Corie, to piggyback on that, and I say this all the time, on a Friday night, a conference game, sometimes you can just throw the records out the window.
No doubt.
Because I'm just telling you, them kids, man, they get hyped up, and all during the day, kids are talking to them too, so they have a tendency to be a little bit more up for those games on Friday night.
Because you mentioned him, Coach, and I'm just taking a stab at it, I couldn't be wrong. The 7'1" kid for Walnut Hills, again, if I'm wrong, you all call in and help me get it right. Zubi Nwankwo. He's a 7'1" kid. And then the kid from Withrow is Abala Wall, Abbawal. The funny part about that, Coach, is the Abala Wall kid transferred from Walnut Hills. So they would have been on the same team at 7'1" and 6'11". So we want to get those names out there. So, coaches, you're interested, if you haven't heard about them, sure you can get them in certain programs with those kind of numbers. You know, you call trying to get kids in school and they don't have any scholarships. say we're holding one for a big, right? You can't get a 6'1", 6'2" guard in. They can really play. They'll get them a big because it really that's what this game is about. You need some bodies around that rim. So those are two names for you, coaches.
I like to add something on to what Coach Timmons said also, because he mentioned about them blocking shots. And the thing about a big, you might not get your hands on all the balls.
Right.
But just being out there with your size and you can have somebody alter a shot, it's almost like you should get a point
Get
block.
credit
You
for
know,
the
A defensive
Right.
assist.
something you should
Right,
get.
assist.
Defensive assist, I agree
Yeah,
100%. We sometimes in practice, we've gotten creative. When I was down there with Coach Tate at Cincinnati State, we had a kid out of Chicago that was 7 foot, DeMarco, I think it was DeMarco Williams. And we used to do things after practice with a one-on-one thing where everybody lined up and played him. We were going to 5, but he got points for his stops, his blocks, retrieving the
Making
ball.
somebody take a bad shot.
All it was for him, he never had to touch the ball. He
Wow.
had to go to 5 versus you, and he got his points for defensive production.
I
And
like that.
there's such a
I like
presence for that kind of thing, and I love what you said, Corey, with the altering of shots. When you change the trajectory of my floater or my regular jump shot or whatever it is, the percentages go down.
I was going to change.
yeah, absolutely. And the percentages go down. So hopefully, coaches, you'll show some interest in these young men. Obviously, at Withrow, Walnut Hill's got some real pedigree in those programs. So go look out for them. I was able to get my eyes on Princeton along with Coach Timmons this week yet again. They came to a Woodline program. A good guy in the neighborhood, Dwight Farley and Steve Sanders there at the Woodline rec facility, did an impact night. I think Dwight Farley did more of the coordinating. He enlisted Coach Timmons and Coach Kelly to come out and speak to the kids. The kids came out, Princeton's boys and girls, and played. So we got to see them a little more close and personally. I hope they're in the right direction because we're getting so close to this tournament. I'm a little bit concerned with some of the scores I'm seeing because it feels like they're allowing other teams to dictate pace. But I'll say this from having seen these guys up close. They are long and athletic and talented and capable of being the last team standing. We don't know how this thing is going to shake out, but they are the last team standing. Looking at a couple of other teams, Lakota East is remaining steady. They're climbing up just a little bit. This thing, we told you guys earlier in the show, a couple of shows ago, that this thing was going to shake itself out. Oak Hills, well, let me go to Mason. Oak Hills was 3 in the Division I poll. Princeton, Moeller, Oak Hills, Mason, Walnut Hills, Dakota East, St. Xavier, Wynwoods. Moeller is held serve. They're still handling their business. Oak Hills has lost, so they're probably gonna fall a little bit. Mason lost a surprising game, I believe, it was to Middletown. So they're going to fall. There's a little free fall there. Walnut Hills is holding serve, so they're going to bump up a few spots. And don't be surprised if Dakota bumps up. And this other team, St. Xavier, Dakota East. Yes, Dakota East. And then St. Xavier, who Coach Timmons spoke about a few shows ago, they hadn't won a conference game or something in some years. I had no
5
idea
years. I didn't know neither
about
until they were
that.
talking about
But they
it.
just beat LaSalle this week. And I think they're playing
Elder before.
Yeah, they've already beaten Elder. They have another pretty big game coming up. And then Winton Woods, who has a young man, Greg Tribble, that we were speaking about. They are there holding the number 8 spot. So those teams will probably all move up. LaSalle is 10. They have a chance to sort of earn their way back in this thing. But it's some really good basketball. If we look at the Division I level big school over in Kentucky, we tend to talk a little bit about Covington Catholic. A measuring stick for me over there, and I call it a recruiting hotbed, is Covington Holmes. I haven't been able to see them this year, but they're generally a really good basketball program. Unfortunately, this week, Cov Cath beat Covington Holmes. They almost doubled the score up on them. They beat them 80-42. So it sounds like Covington, I don't know if Covington Holmes is down, but what it does sound like to me that the Covington Cath has remained to be a legitimate basketball team. As we get down into some of these other levels, Taft had a huge game, and Coach Timmons will speak a little bit about that, what he's heard. I read about the stats and production, but DeMarco Bradley, again, doing a fantastic job at Taft. They played Woodward at Taft. Last night they beat them 60-44. And Woodward has to bounce right back tonight and play, which I'll get into later with 4 games you might want to take in here tonight. But McNick is a close second in the Division II. Hughes is right there. Coach Wyatt, one of the best coaches hands down in the city, doing a good job with his kids. And Coach, I want you to speak on, we'll run through these real quickly. I want you to speak on a couple of players. The one that just got available for Hughes, a transfer from Mount Healthy, the Dominic Bruton kid.
DJ.
Yeah, and then the couple of kids from Wyoming that you had seen play. And then I want to give a quick shout out to Ryland Woods of Summit Country Day. I think they're a one-loss team. Ryland is the younger brother. We always talk about pedigree and such the son and mom and everybody's, just the knowledge of the game, the ability to play the game. Ryland Woods is a starting guard. He's a junior guard for Summit Country Day. He's the leader in assists and steals, second in rebounding at the guard spot. He's like 4th in scoring, but he's a steady presence. He's sort of like the glue guy for them. Now he's the younger brother of Antonio Woods, who's a starting guard for the University of Penn, state champion at Summit Country Day, along with Kevin Johnston went to UC and Macy O'Teague, who's presently a starter at the University of North Carolina, Asheville. So just want to shout out to some kids that are maybe below the radar that are getting it done. Deer Park in 3, they are absolutely still holding it down. They're undefeated. They dropped 100 on somebody this week yet again. They run 8-9 kids. Was it Taylor?
105 to 55.
But you're going to play their pace. That Purcell Marion and that North College Hill team are 2 and 3 in that level. And I'm going to kind of stop right there, because I think those are going to be the three teams that it goes through in our area for this ranking in the poll. Deer Park, Purcell Marion, North College Hill. Until I get my eyes on other teams, I don't want to speak a whole lot about the remainder of them. Don't know a lot about the Division IV level. Lockland is my alma mater. They're in the middle. They're 6th. They lost here to Clark Montessori, the independent team. They lost, I think, 60 to 58 this week. So it'll be interesting. We'll tell you a little bit more about those teams as it progresses. But most of the teams are holding serve right now. Mason seems to be falling just a little bit, but I think they'll be okay, because the Tanner New, little point guard, a little glue guy, didn't play very well in the loss to Middletown. And I don't count on that on a regular basis. I think he's a really good little player.
Coach Young, go back to Division IV you were talking about.
Yes, sir.
Gamble is a school that you're going to have to really reckon with also.
Okay.
They had 2 kids that were ineligible because they had transferred in, and I hear that both of them are back now. And I see they got 1 vote.
Yeah, they're actually the first kind of local team that we recognize. The other ones don't know a lot about Ripley Union, Fairfield Local, New Miami, Peebles. Right. But you're right, Campbell Montessori is actually the 3rd ranked team in the Division IV.
I seen them play, I watched a little bit of it, halftime, because they were getting beat pretty good by Aiken. And now he didn't have his kids yet. So I said, well, I'll watch a little bit of this. Then I went to another game. But I said, I'm going to come back and check Gamble out, probably about the 20th, 21 game or whatever. But they're also a team that we probably want to keep our eyes on in Division IV.
We need to get together and go out there and get our eyes on those guys. As we say, when we get our eyes on the kids and we can get back and give you an accurate report of what we see, we also told you repeatedly that this thing has a way of shaking itself out. You roll that ball out and play, things are going to happen. So these teams are starting to see each other, period. They're seeing each other a second time, and you're starting to see the polls get shaken up a little bit. So I look forward to that happening even more. Coach was mentioning Dominic Bruton.
Yeah.
I believe it's DJ.
DJ.
I saw him in the tournament with Mount Healthy, and I know Wisconsin at that time is showing some interest in him.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about what you saw with him.
He's a very interesting player. And what I say is that he plays in spurts sometimes. And that can kind of get on your nerve a little bit as a coach. At least he did his junior year. And now he's over here at Hughes, and like they say, sometimes when you're in Rome, you do what the Romans did. And these guys at Hughes, they play extremely hard, and they try their best to play together for high school kids, develop chemistry like that. This kid, he's athletic, can shoot the 3, take you off the dribble, left or right, and good passer. And also what I've seen in DJ and what I've known of him, because he played in our league at the Friars Club, he's a nice kid. And I've seen that the kids from Hughes welcome him in, you know. So I look for him to really help Hughes make a little run, you know, come tournament time.
Coach, we gotta track this kid and see if Wisconsin and the likes are still showing interest, and if not, gather some information and do what we can to present him.
I was
You know,
going to
sometimes
the
kids get
practice
lost
and
when they go
right,
from
right.
one school to the. I mean, you know, not
No, you're
when they
right.
really
You're right.
want them, but sometimes it does happen.
Right.
So maybe we need to track him and get it figured out. You also talked about Wyoming.
Wyoming, yeah, I seen them play last night against Finneytown. And I was impressed with the head coach's son, Edmonds. His kid name is Joey Edmonds. He had 29 points. He had 10 points in the second half, all free throws. In the first half, he had like 4 threes. And taking off the dribble, he ended up, like I said, he ended up with 29. And getting to the basket, really understanding his body, that's why he's at the free throw line so much, you know. For a kid that age, I mean, when they were trying to run time down, I watch him out, he would lean over and keep kids on his hip, keep the defense on his hip while he was dribbling the basketball.
What's the coach's last name again, Coach?
Emerson.
Isn't he
Used to
in
be
the
in
lineage
Turner.
with, but he was also with Kramer, wasn't he connected?
Yeah,
with Coach
he
Kramer?
was.
Mo?
Yeah, Mo was
You
Mo.
see some of that style, some of that discipline, and some of that toughness in the Wyoming program. Wyoming's historically been a pretty good basketball
Pretty good,
program, but you could see where the coach has sort of put his special touch on it. Coach Blount, and I refer to you as Corie and Coach Blount because we have some personal interaction as coaches on the same staff, which was a great time, man, working with you. Maybe some other things are going to be introduced here in the near future. We're going to keep that under our hat for now. But Coach Blount, I had a question for you as it relates to high school basketball. Coming from the West Coast and coming here in the Midwest and the travels that you've had in between even, maybe speaking directly to West Coast, Midwest basketball, what do you see as a difference or similarities in high school basketball?
Well, the major difference that I see is a shot clock. I mean, we have a shot clock in California that kind of speeds the tempo of the game up. Like Coach Timmons also stated earlier that it was a team that scored 100 points. I haven't seen that since I've been watching Ohio basketball, since I've been in the States. So when that happens, it should be a pretty big deal. Usually you can get a few 100-point games in California just based on the style and the introduction of the shot clock. And I think it just speeds up the tempo. It puts more emphasis on one-on-one instead of just the overall team moving the ball from side to side that I see a lot, especially in the GMC. So I think it just gives players the ability to develop their individual talents to be able to play at that next level. Because at the next level, they have a shot clock also.
So you would agree that it's preparing a kid better to play on that next level?
I mean, systems come into place with everything, but I do believe if you're familiar with the shot clock, you should be able to adapt better. You know? And there's different levels of college basketball. You know, you got your D2s or your D3s where that might even not come into a factor. But I think the more that you familiarize yourself and having that kind of tempo, if you go to a school with that also plays that style, it just helps you get looked at and also just brings exposure to your talent individually. You know, that's why I would have a question for you guys. Why haven't that been implemented or even talked about here in the state of Ohio?
If I can go first,
Go ahead.
I don't think any of us actually know, but I'm going to speculate. Some of the more dominant teams that have done well in Ohio State basketball have been teams that have done well because they've been able to milk the clock, pass the ball 10, 12, 15 possessions. So they are sometimes able to compete even with lesser talent, but a system of discipline and flex cuts and all of that. So you would probably decrease their chances of advancing against certain teams when you're just measuring possessions because you got to shoot it. You got to shoot it. And some people, I think, have gotten used to their ways, like they like a particular brand of basketball. Just to jump subjects real quick, guys, I played my first year of college basketball in Iowa. Never would have believed it, but the way they play basketball, girls basketball, is a 6-on-6 game. You remember the rounded backboards? They still play with many of those, and you have 3 offensive players, specifically for offense, and we don't cross that line. You know, once the defense gets the ball from us, they kick it to their 3 offensive players. And
That's how they play.
And the team that we're playing against on this side of the court, their offensive players now play.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and again, I couldn't believe. I thought it was prehistoric.
Yeah.
I'm just being honest. I thought it was
Right.
prehistoric. Now, there's some things I got out of it. There's a lot of things I got out of it. It was really a form of half-court basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the way they played the game. And so back to your question, Corey, with why they haven't implemented and all that stuff, I think people get set in their ways, and certain teams have won, and it's kind of hard to dethrone some of these power schools when they have this level of influence. And then if I just mentioned Moeller could play any brand of basketball you can think of because they have that kind of talent.
Right.
But they'll hit you with whichever is convenient.
No doubt.
You know, they'll beat you up and put up numbers, but then they'll slow it down and have a 40-point game against you if they feel like they're playing a team that might outrun them a little bit. So I think some of it is political, I believe, but I think it would help all of the kids more because I don't think I know of a college level that doesn't have a shot clock. So when you're not being trained to play the way you're going to be expected to play if you don't practice that way.
Well, not just before Coach Timmons asked it, I'm looking at the evolution of the player. You know, these kids are getting trained at a level early on in life from first to all the way through high school. They're getting introduced to these high-skilled, different styles of play, individual training, different things. So the player is evolving. And when you have the player evolving, it seems like it limits that player's ability to showcase their skills and their talents based on a system or a style of play that you're forcing them to play. Now, for those who can really adapt to that style, it's okay, but as a fan now, and I'm watching this, it's like, why don't you take that shot? Or won't you attack the basket? You know, and that's just, that's the question.
Well,
so go ahead.
If I can, one more point, if the players are evolving, it seems to stand the reason that the game should evolve, with them. And to your point, this is something that I do. I'm totally guilty, but I know I'm not by myself. I'll go look at games when I pick and choose who I'm going to go see. It may not be the most talented group of players, the best coach group or any of that, but I'll oftentimes go pick a game that I think might be an energetic, active kind of game. The kind of game that is playing almost a shot clock without an official shot clock. You understand what I'm saying? I may not go see that team or those two teams that are going to be in a game that's 30 to 28. That has no real interest for me. Now, if I'm recruiting a player there, that's different.
Right.
As far as me going to go see that game, I choose in most cases to not go see it. Yeah. Coach, your thoughts?
Yeah, I just feel like that, and I look at a lot of these kids, what they do after they leave high school. And I'm talking about some of these schools, I'm not going to get into the different conference, but the kids that hold the ball, like you say, 45 seconds to a minute. And when you watch them go to college, a lot of them do not stay in there the entire 4 years. Some of them get cut and just become regular little, what you call that, for kids who don't play on the team. We've had it in intramurals. That's what it ended up being, intramural prayer, because it's hard for you to come into a system where you got guys that's already used to playing at that level and that style of play, and then you come in and you used to holding the ball. I mean, it just takes away from you being aggressive when you need to be, like you said before, Court. Why isn't this guy shooting? Why isn't he attacking the basket? You know, those are some of the things that I feel like hurt those kids in the long run. Sure enough, you're going to get a good education in those schools, and I'm not, but you can get a good education anywhere if you want one, and I'm a firm believer of that. So, like you said before too, Corey, about, you putting in all this time training, all right, you shooting 600-700 shots a day. You putting in 45 minutes to an hour with your ball handle. Then you get in the game, you only get a chance to shoot 5 to 6 times. So sometimes it can mess with you too. But go ahead, Corey.
I was looking at the aspect also, you have a kid that's playing AAU, where they're playing up for a style of play, and then you see the same kid when he's on his high school team, and he can't get any playing time or play based on the style.
Right.
And
that's a good point.
So that's where it's kind of confusing.
And it gets frustrating for kids because, kids talk, and you're kids, all of a sudden, he can't coach.
Yeah, that's what they blame.
You hear that a lot. It may not be that, but that whole style and that system doesn't work for how you play and what it is you want to do. To tie this in, Coach, guys, and what we're talking about with this pace and a good game that we might want to consider going to see on the 30th. We're talking about Wyoming, the toughness, the discipline, the talented players that they have. Deer Park has to go back and see them again.
Tough game.
Now, I mentioned that game, Corie, because of this. Deer Park is 14-0, and I don't know if you've seen it, but we might want to.
Talk to Stevie.
I've seen them a couple times. I'd like to go see them again. They are 14-0 with 5 100-plus point games.
Wow.
5. So they play at that pace to be recruited to play at that pace. You know, and you're going to figure out how to beat them, or they're going to get those kinds of numbers on you because they press and they run and they press and they run and they press and they run. They share the ball, and they got high basketball IQ, and so they're fun to watch. They're probably fun to watch in a versus a lesser opponent than maybe 2 other teams playing, and both of them being maybe really good, evenly matched opponents, but their styles are kind of slow, methodical, and it's like, oh man, this is a team that you can go watch and enjoy the game because they play like they have a shot clock, but they have a discipline. They have high IQ players. Steve does a good job of driving them and getting them to do the right thing. He's about 9 deep, you know, with some pretty good little players. They have size and length, and again, we talked about these guys, Corie, on one of our previous shows, and it's okay to mention this again because we always seem to underemphasize the importance of this grade thing. They have like 7 or 8 kids that are honor roll.
Wow.
You know, which is extremely special. One of the kids on the team is a soccer kid. He leaked out and got a layup. The only basket he got all game, and the fans lost their minds. But he's a 4.6 GPA on the 5.0 scale. But that's the fun stuff. The guy that donated a lot of money to their school, visited the locker room. He talked about the losing season. He kind of got emotional. You know, it was kind of cool to see because, you know, we have a passion for this thing, right? And to see this older gentleman come in the locker room and talk about how they were like a breath of fresh air for bringing the victories and the different pace and style of play is pretty cool. So, again, they're a team that should stay at the top of our radar that we should want to go see. I'd like to go see them in the tournament, certainly, and hopefully they can stay healthy and see what happens with them. Coach, real quickly with regard to revisiting our recruitable student athlete of the week, that would be Cameron Gibson of Walnut Hills. What's his measurements again, Coach?
6'3", go about 180, something like that.
Get Corie involved in that kind of stuff.
You know, let me say this real quick. I forgot to mention it. Coach Ricardo Hill, his son. Okay, Kevin. I want to say it's Kevin Hill, Ryan Hill. I'm sorry. This kid did a great job of running the point for him too. And he got him into their offense. He kept them calm. And defense, oh my goodness, this kid go out the ball. Now, hey, you didn't know Coach Hunter back then, Corie. Now when talking about picking up the ball baseline to baseline, he was known for that. This kid's the same way. I mean, he's just short guy, just getting angles, making guys, all right, he's going right now, he's putting it in his left hand, then he's putting it back to his right. I mean, he was making the guy turn that much that I was impressed. That's why I wanted to make sure I said it. Also, Evan Prater, all right, the kid from Wyoming, he also scored 22 points last night in their victory over Finneytown. But I just wanted to make sure I gave those kids, you know, a shout out.
Coach, I'm too old to Google, so you can't prove or disprove what you said about there are some really good games coming up tonight that we would really, it would behoove you to take some time out of your schedule if you're a high school basketball fan to go see. And again, we don't want to short the girls, but our resident expert, Walter White, has some other commitments and couldn't be here today. So we don't want to slight them, which is why we kind of let in acknowledging the young ladies and the production that some of the Princeton grads have done on their college levels. So when Walter White comes back, we'll get right back into girls basketball and share the love with them as well. But tonight I have four boys games, either one. Good game. I don't know if there's an order, but I'm just going to read them off. Walnut Hills and LaSalle, I think will be a really good game. I have to get in here and look at that. Let me go back to the top. Here we'll find out there, Coach, as I get back to the top here.
That's gonna make a difference.
Yeah, it absolutely is going to make a difference. Walnut Hills in LaSalle, they're playing tonight. We have Woodward and Winton Woods,
At Woodward.
and it's at Woodward.
At Woodward. I'm going to that game.
And
I'll report on that.
Taft and Summit Country Day. That is.
Summer's record.
There's, I think they've lost one game,
Okay.
like maybe 13, 14
should
and
be
1.
good.
So that should be a tremendous game. And again, looking at here, Coach, it doesn't even know where they play. It just has the fact that they're playing one another.
Yeah, it's all good.
Princeton is playing the #1 team in the state in Dayton Wayne.
Dayton Wayne.
And I believe that's at Wilmington's complex.
It is, yeah. I heard
Yeah.
somebody
So
talking
that's
about
that's a
that.
6:30 or so game this evening. So it should be a bunch of high flying, highly recruited athletes on the floor at that game. I would like to go to that game personally, but I may stay around and take in either Winton Woods and Woodward or Taft and Summit. I think Taft and Summit could be a really good game, contrasting styles.
That's where grown man towards ACL last year.
At Summit,
So
okay.
they're playing at Taft tonight.
Okay.
So that, hey, I'm looking for, oh, wait, man.
Yeah, so those
I'm
are
looking for
those are
Taft.
some
I'm
really-
looking for Taft to return that favor.
Okay.
Because they lost over there last year.
And
And
then
it was a good game until the end.
That's
What you
a
say?
difficult place to win. They tradition. Coach, when you start building a tradition in the program, and they came to Shoemaker Center when you guys played, it's hard to walk up there with a W. I don't know what it is about what level of basketball you play. I know I even did this coming out of college with my junior high team, but we named the gym. We call it the dungeon, and
Really?
you weren't going to come out of the dungeon with a W. And that's just the way we approach it now.
That's
Did we lose a game or so? Yeah, but it's probably no more than one or so. But we just protected home court.
Home court.
And it's hard to go, and so your point is well taken, Coach, where are they playing?
Mm-hmm.
It makes all the difference in the world. Sometimes LaSalle would probably play much better LaSalle than they might play versus at Walnut Hills.
Yeah.
Although they're the same team, they just play a little bit differently depending on the courses they play.
You just get used to your own surroundings.
Yes, well, your fan base.
And your fan
You
base
you
as
shoot
well.
on these Rams all the time.
All the time.
You know
Yeah.
there's creeks in the floor, the soft spots,
Mhm.
all the details. So, with all of that being said, we have a special guest again that's now a resident here, but he's in and out of town, so he may have flown from a long ways to be a guest today.
All the way from Liberty Township.
All the way from Liberty Township. And we want to give a special thanks to you, Corie, for blessing us with your presence. And if you have anything that you want to say as we close out, and also before you say it, we want to extend the invitation at any time.
Oh, no, it was just an
You're
honor
welcome.
to be here. You two guys, man, when I first came to Cincinnati, you were two of the gentlemen that just showed so much respect and gave us so much guidance as a group just interacting with you two. So it's always much love and respect going out to both of you gentlemen. I had the privilege to coach with Coach Victor Hunter right here, and then me and Timmons, we've been interactive. He's always giving me advice on different moves, so I got a lot of love for both of these gentlemen. And if I need to be back to help you guys out, it's no problem for me.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Corie. Coach Timmons, do you have anything
Uh,
to sign off?
Man, one time, to show you how the life works, all right, I go up to Chicago, and I'm doing this camp. What kind of camp was that?
It was the Developmental League
Yeah,
tryout.
right. So I'm up there, and I had already worked a couple of them. It was the D League, right? It was the D League. And I had already worked a couple of them. So I'm up there, and the guy said, well, we need another coach. And Corie Blount happened to be there. So I go to Corie, I say, man, would you be interested in coaching? And he said, yeah. So I go to the guy, and I told him who Corie was, and good guy, the whole 9 yards. He said, yeah, bring him on. And Corie ended up coaching and did a good job.
Yeah.
Hold on, his team beat our team.
Oh, he knows what he's
Yeah,
doing.
and Corie had him doing that UC track in only a half an hour. He only got with him for a half an hour. And he had them guys doing that, man. Corie did a great job.
I also had the pleasure of coaching with one of his best friends, and Eric Martin, and to watch them together kind of revisit how they did it.
Right,
With
right,
the
right.
Final Four run was pretty cool. Corie, and I have to tell the story without going into great detail. What's the game you showed us how to play Card game.
Oh, Boo-Ray.
Boo-Ray. And don't even need to get into the game. We just said we had an absolute ball, and what the stories that he told us, they were just captivating. We said Chicago. We rode back from Chicago and played Boo-Ray much of the way from Chicago. But he was talking about it being a game that he's flown on the NBA planes and watched Jordan and Pippen play. On a whole different level, you know. but it was a wonderful game and some of our fellowship time, that we had. So we thank you for joining us this week. Cincinnati Herald's weekly high school basketball report. Again, the encouragement from the word that we gave you earlier. We would like to finish with that yet again. The book of Philippians, chapter 4, verse 13 says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Hope to see you next week. If you'll look at the credits as we sign off, we'll have all of our contact information. Give us feedback, give us information, give us players that we can promote and help out. We're looking for a recruitable student athlete every week. This is not a predetermined thing. We're figuring it out as we go. Maybe the next one is your player.